Hey everyone, welcome to the Mobile User Acquisition Show. In the Mobile User Acquisition Show, we talk about how to use mobile user acquisition strategies to grow your app quickly and capital efficiently. The Mobile User Acquisition Show is presented by me, Shamant Rao, mobile growth leader and founder and CEO of the mobile growth consulting firm Rocketship HQ. Each episode includes strategies, tips, and pointers from the leading edge of mobile user acquisition that you can use to unlock tremendous growth for your app in a sustainable and capital efficient manner. Our guest today is Gonzalo Fasanella, Chief Marketing Officer at Tactile Games. Gonzalo and his team have taken a strikingly unconventional approach to user acquisition and growth by running and working on ads that emphasize short, dramatic vignettes of stories featuring protagonists rather than gameplay. Today, we're thrilled to dive into how they think about their strikingly original creatives, how their teams are structured to drive creativity, how they measure and track the performance of their creatives, how their teams and the meeting and interaction cadences of their teams are structured, and much, much more about everything that has gone into making their game Lily's Garden such a breakout hit. I'm very excited to welcome Gonzalo Fasanella to the Mobile User Acquisition Show. Gonzalo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shamant. How are you?
Great. And I'm excited to have you, Gonzalo, because certainly the work you do is something I've admired for a long time. The games you guys have built, the ads you guys have built, and more than one game developer has come to us and said, oh, we want to be like Lily's Garden. And I'm sure there are a lot of developers that aspire to be doing the kind of work that you do. So I'm thrilled to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
So to start off, Gonzalo, what inspired your team to work on story-driven games on the product front? And related question, what inspired the adoption of story-driven ads on the marketing front?
Okay. So in regards to the product, so the company has been around for quite a while now. Actually, Asbjørn, who's the founder and CEO, has been working in the puzzle category for Match 3 Blaster line connectors since 2014, 13. And so we developed the Cookie Cats brand, the Brilliant brand, and also Simon's Cat brand. And all those games were saga-based games. The meta game was just one level after one level. At the time, you didn't have any of the story-driven or design-based meta games. So when I joined the team, the product team was already thinking about pivoting the meta game to something a little to evolve the meta game from the saga, as we thought that we needed a stronger retention element, and we just wanted to evolve our game production. So there were already a lot of ideas. Whether to move to a gacha base, whether to do a story-driven, a city builder. Back then you had already Playrix started to compete very strongly. So the decision was up in the air, and then what we did is that we made an analysis in regards to what was out there in the competition and what had the better possibilities, and also, of course, we thought about what we were good internally at, right? And you know that Denmark is well known for the very good design of furniture and houses and gardens and things like that. So we knew that we had that talent in proximity, and we also saw that there was something from all these categories that was kind of missing. So we clearly thought that doing a design-driven game was something that was going to give us a lot of room to improve our KPIs, but at the same time we didn't want to do something as was already in the market. So we started to think about this story-driven game, which came from the CEO and the game team, of course. And one of the things that we started to discuss early on between marketing and the game team was to have something that it was relatable, very relatable to the users, because we saw that it was a very good position for the company to be at, because the games that you had back then were design driven, and the stories themselves, I mean, the ones that had a design driven element and a story, the story was all the time serving for instance, a live op. So if you had a new character, it was always because there was a live op, it was a daily reward or something that needed the game in terms of the economy of the game, or to serve some purpose like that. So what we thought is that we didn't want to do that. We actually wanted to do a game that was more like a mobile series, you know, have something in between what would be a series, a show, and a game. And starting to do characters that would serve the story, right? So we are not afraid of making developing a character that takes a long time if the story needs that. So we made that compromise, and we wanted to position the game to be very relatable and at the same time to be really story driven, not as these competitors that you might think about. And we thought that it was going to give us a competitive advantage, because you either had a design game with a very dull story, or you had something that it was very cartoonish, that appeals more for younger audiences. But you know, females above 45 would tend to play those games because those are the ones in the market actually. But we thought there was a gap there. We saw benchmarking that we had a potential to grow from the KPIs at the time, and we just took the leap of faith. The rest was execution, basically. I mean, I think we nailed it with the story, and we selected a female character that you did not have back then as well. It helps a lot. And the story is very relatable across the plot. Good and bad things happen to Lily and the rest of the characters, and one of the compromises we did was to, you know, video games, especially mobile games, is all about being funny and cute. Everything is about that the user does everything perfect, and everything that happens in the game is there are no mistakes, no problems, no bad things. We wanted to stay away from that and have something more realistic, more relatable.
Certainly, I think this was fairly groundbreaking at the time, you know, so I'm very impressed by what you guys have pulled off. You also said the rest of it was execution, but of course that is oftentimes one of the more challenging things about pulling off something like this. And I understand that really translating that idea to actual execution, one of the things you guys did up front was actually conduct focus groups to understand users and to see if story-based marketing and the product features would actually make sense. So tell us about these focus groups. How were they structured? And what were some of the key learnings and takeaways that informed product marketing, or both? Okay, so we started to develop focus groups actually before Lily's Garden. And the idea of the focus group was to serve particularly the marketing team. Before we started with Lily's Garden, the team was much smaller. So we're talking early 2018. And we had animators. Well, actually, at the time, they were not animating that much for marketing videos, for ads. And I personally come from advertising myself, and then my professional career developed into marketing, right? But I studied advertising, so one of the first things I thought about the ads we were putting out is that we were not considering basic elements of advertising to put an ad out, and that it was not just about Tactile. I think it's something that the industry were still learning to do ads that feel like something that it has a plan behind, and it's not just about iterating a lot of elements of a game together and mix and match that until you find something that works. So what we wanted is to have the people that were creating the ads
an understanding about what happens when a user is exposed to the ad, right? And different type of ads, not only the ones we were making at the time, but the competitors' ad. So we conducted a lot of focus groups, and basically it was about having about six to eight people of the demographic, of course. And then we would try to simulate perfectly how is the experience. If they have the phone with sound, we would give headsets. If not, we wouldn't. And then we would put them in front of one ad. They would watch that ad, and they would have to speak about what the things that they remember. I mean, there's nothing new about it. I mean, this has been done in TV advertising for ages now, and basically I wanted the team to understand what were the important things for an ad to be remembered, and not only be remembered, but more basic things like the flow to the ad, the elements for focus, to making sure that you don't have too many elements moving at the same time, that you could concentrate on what the user wanted the user to look at, the potential user. We started to have this and seeing the type of ads that would work better. There wasn't a lot of story-driven ads at the time, so we started to develop some story-driven ads for the previous games, and we had some early good indications that could work well. But in order to be able to do a story in an ad, you need to understand all those basic things. And how to start the ad, how it needs to evolve, and how it needs the options that you have to close an ad. If you want to have a joke at the end, or if you want to have a punchline, or if you want to have a cliffhanger, what is the best for each one of the ads, etc. So I think that in general, what we ended up knowing is the basics of constructing a good ad. Sorry about the lights. So that gave us all the basics to be able to do story-driven ads. And from then on, it was about being able to tell good stories. But yeah, it was a very basic infrastructure work that we made on those focus groups, I would say.
Yeah, and you're right in that a lot of user acquisition advertising has been very iterative. And I don't think very many companies or teams have looked at foundational elements like you just spoke about, much less talk to customers and figure out what their reaction is. And you did say, look, there were the basic elements of ads. What were some of the basic elements that you guys were looking at? What were some of these foundational elements of the ads that you guys put in place?
So, I mean, one of the things that we, in the beginning, understanding how annoying the ads could be, right? I mean, one of the things that we got all the time is that when we were talking about how do you get new games and things like that, we were discussing with the people of the focus groups of things. Most of people would say that as soon as they have an ad in front of their faces, they would just put the phone down, wait for 30 seconds and look at it again. So starting from that point on, it just gives you the reference that you have to have something in the beginning of the ad that is eye-catching, right? You don't have a long time, and that you don't need a focus group for that. There's plenty of studies that tell you that. But after that is, so how do you start the ad? What type of elements do you put in the beginning of the ad? And then the idea was that we were trying to develop stories and develop a flow in the ad, and we wanted to make sure that that was getting across. Right, so we would start to understand that maybe we wanted to put focus on something, or we thought about one ad to have a focus in a particular element, in a particular moment of the ad, and then we would realize that actually that point wouldn't get across, and they would misunderstand the whole idea, or that we wanted to also understand things like the focus of the user in a particular moment of the ad is very important, right? So if you wanted to emphasize something that you think is a key selling point of the ad, you wanted to make sure that everybody watched that part and understood that part. And most of the cases we would not accomplish that. And those basic things I'm talking about is the storytelling, is how do you put the story out? In which way you want the person to understand that? And if there is something you want them to understand that is very clear, but maybe what you want to do with the ad is to just leave a question. So you want to make sure that the question that you're leaving there for the users is the correct one, etc. So basically, in general, it was putting in front of the users, putting the creative guys in front of the users and understanding the perspective of the user, which is completely different from, particularly when you're working with the demographic we're working. You know, it's really hard to have that demographic working here because we are working for females that in general are not very interested in gaming or in these things. And the people that we have here is just not the demographic. So it's very important to have the reactions from the actual demographic, you know, and that they can see it firsthand. So you don't have to explain it or try to explain it, because of course I learned a lot from those focus groups. And but those are very basic things that it tells you things that, for instance, another thing is that you would, when you're, a lot of people do a lot of ads that are like trying to make a joke about something, and then you would understand the things that the people that are watching that understand as a joke and the ones that don't understand as a joke, you know. So you can also fine-tune your humor and fine-tune the way that you tell things for the people that are going to watch this to understand, and not just you.
Yeah. And something else I found interesting about everything you guys have done is your ads are not funny, right? And I think you guys really...
Come on, funny.
Some of them are funny. So yeah, I do remember some that are funny, but certainly very many of them aren't. So what was that decisioning like to say, oh, we're going to make serious ads. We're not going to focus on funny ads. We're not going to focus on loud ads, so to speak. Was that an intentional decision? How did you guys think about it?
Yeah, it was intentional. I mean, it was quite simple at the time. We thought that everybody, or most of the competition, was trying to do something either funny or cute, and that would be 90% of the ads are out there. Mm-hmm. And then you had all the ones that is just about showing the game or the meta game, and it doesn't have any. It's not constructed as an ad. It's just a lot of elements put together. But for the ones that tried to do something or send a message across, it was either cute or funny. So what we said is that we needed to explore other type of emotions. And that could be anything. That could be sadness, as you say, or it could be anger, or it could be anxiety, it could be anything. The only thing was to try to do something that it was strong. Strong emotion, but not only, you know, positive what people would call positive emotions. Just any type of emotion that we can trigger through an ad. Let's try to do it, because at the end of the day, we wanted people not to put the phone down when our ad is out. And if we do whatever else is doing, in the end, that will happen to you. So it came out of that, out of exploring other emotions, and then we discovered that some emotions work better than others.
Sure. And an important part of having story-driven ads on a consistent basis, I would imagine, is how your team is structured. You know, and traditionally, user acquisition is considered synonymous with media buying, not so much with looking at storytelling or understanding emotions or planning this out. So I would imagine you guys have had to make some intentional choices around how your teams are structured. So can you speak to how your UA and creative teams are structured, how they interact, and how you think about making sure these emotional aspects actually get surfaced in the ads, rather than everybody coming up with 20 iterations of something that's worked?
So the marketing team here is, we have the marketing tech team that is data science and developers, backend developers mainly. Then we have the UA team, as you say, the traditional media buyers, performance marketeers. And then we have social media, and then we have the creative marketing team. We don't have departments here at Tactile. We try to be extremely lean, so it's a really flat structure, and everybody works with everybody. We work very closely with every other team in the company. So that already helps a lot. That we don't have, to be thinking about divisions of departments or anything like that. We just don't bother with those things. But within the team, one of traditionally what has happened in the UA industry is that, in the beginnings, everybody wants to find that profile of someone very analytical and at the same time artistically creative, right? Because of course you can have an analytical guy that is very creative, but you needed someone that has a sense of style as well. So for a long time, for many years, every company tried to find that profile that could serve that, and it's understandable because we come from the feature phone era when we didn't have any videos out, so everything was static interstitial, right? So iterating an image, it was much simpler than iterating a video that is in motion all the time. So for a long time, everybody, including me in other companies, tried to work on iterating an ad till you could improve that funnel so much that actually becomes a hit ad or a good ad in terms of IPM, spending, CPM, or whatever KPI you're talking about. The first problem I thought about that, I saw on that is that it's really hard to find those profiles. It's extremely hard to find something very good with data, a very good media buyer that at the same time is really good at understanding a creative piece. And if you mix that with the fact that most of companies have to develop 100 videos just to have a couple of decent good ads, that the conversion rate of a video produced versus the one that actually worked well out there is very small. It's very hard. So then I started to wonder, why would you have that, right? Why would you have the UA team in charge of deciding what type of ads you want to do? If it is not about iterating, because you're only going to make 1 or 2 ads out of 100 that will work really, really well, and then it's so hard to find the profile, is that what is the point? And the point many will say is that it's very hard for creative guys to understand anything in regards to data, right? Yeah. So that's why you have to do it that way. Well, I think that is underestimating people, because this is not rocket science. Yeah. So in the third problem about it is that every time you put an analytical guy that is a media buyer, so it's a business or business oriented profile, with someone that is a creative oriented profile, and you put them in a meeting and they have to discuss about what video to do next, what to iterate, the guy with the data behind, with pitching, with ability to pitch, to ability to convince people, will tend to win 99% of the conversations. So everybody will start doing what the UA person wants to do, which not only doesn't bring all the time very good results, but it really diminishes the morale of the person that needs to develop the videos, because there's no ownership to that person. So with all these elements in mind, what we thought is that we had to give the creative team autonomy. And it was really important to work towards autonomy and have those teams working in parallel and not one be responsible of the other. So what we did is that we created a single tool, you can call it, where you can see a couple of KPIs that are the most important. And when I say a couple, it's literally a couple. And we try to digest that data in a way that is very accessible for anybody making videos. so they can see overall what videos are working the best in which operations, etc. So they can get more granular, and the ones with more experience can get more granular in understanding. But at the end of the day, what you want is them to be able to detect the videos that are working well in order to do two things. One is to reiterate the ones that are working really well. Mm-hmm. And when they have a new concept, they want to develop a new concept, they have an idea, they can have a look at concepts that are similar and see how those work, and see if they can grab some elements of those that can enhance the one that they are about to produce. So that's the only thing that we want from them, is that to be able to digest some data to make a production decision. So whether it's a new concept or an iteration, you don't need to understand the whole funnel to be able to make that decision. You need to understand a couple of KPIs that can guide you to make. And then by giving the autonomy and that freedom, then creativity is easier to evolve, to flourish in that framework. Of course, the challenge comes through that they have to work in parallel, and you don't want any of those teams to actually go in a different direction or to sidetrack. So then you have to work in trying to make sure that everybody's reading the same and everybody's in the same page. But it pays out, because at the end of the day, you have a very motivated team, and results for us has been good so far. So
yeah. And what I'm also impressed by is that you said you just look at a couple of metrics, and you're empowering the creative teams to look at these metrics. So what are these metrics that they look at? Why are they important?
Yeah, so I mean, it's basic. We look at, everybody looks at IPM. IPM will tell you, and then traction. And then we have a KPI that is to check the traction that each ad has, because an ad in this industry, where the only thing that makes sense is that nothing makes sense. Yeah. Which is the way it's so fun to work in this industry, is that you can have a video that has a very good IPM, but it gets no traction, and it's very hard to understand why sometimes, but that can happen. So those are the set of KPIs that they have to look at the end of the day, and they need to be able to see what is a good IPM in a particular network, and which videos are getting the better traction. Sure. And then they can see the data in different ways as well. I mean, they can see week over week, they can see all time, and things like that. And then we also, every time we create a meeting in the marketing team here, the first purpose of that meeting is to get rid of the meeting. Yeah. So, but at the moment we are still one day of the week. I sit down with the creative marketing team, and sometimes a UA joins, where we can focus using that tool in a particular operation. So the UA person can talk a bit about what is working, what is not working, and give a little more information. But that's it, and that's just half an hour every week, and we are close to actually remove that meeting. So
very cool. Yeah, and in terms of the working process of the creative team, you spoke about how they're looking at different emotional angles, right? What does that ideation process look like for the creative team? Do they sit down, brainstorm? Do they, look at references? Do they come up and pitch? Or are they free to work on their own? How does that look like for the creative person?
Yeah, so it depends who you ask. We would say that actually is a team with the least structure than any other team in Tactile, right? But actually, I would think that is the opposite. It's a very structured team if you think about it. They don't have any meeting at all. I mean, the creative lead has meetings, but those are not meetings about the ads. Something for us that is very important is to have a backend developer, a data science, a creative, being exposed to what the UA people does, because everything the UA people is doing right now impacts what you want to automate, or impacts the performance of the ads, etc. So We want to learn all together. So in those meetings, we have a team member that rotates of every team within the marketing team, because it's performance marketing is the marketing of our industry, right? So the creative lead is part of those. So he kind of his understanding of data is a good understanding of data for being exposed to that all the time. The same as backend developers, etc. But the team, which is about 7 people of creative guys that develop videos mainly and playables, they don't have any meeting, not in just the one of 30 minutes I talked to you about, which is basically to keep on learning on how to use this tool. But other than that, there is no meeting. What we do have is the whole company has a daily stand-up, but in our case, we have a daily sit-down. Okay, that happens in the morning, and there is no clock for it. We arrive here 15 minutes after we arrive. We sit down in couches, very comfortable couches with a TV close by in case we need it, with coffee at hand, and it's an open chat. And the chat can start about what someone is wearing today, till something that happens to someone, etc. And it just evolves into, in general, it evolves into ideas of ads and things like those. In general, that meeting takes about 45 minutes, I would say, is the average, but sometimes it's like 2 hours. Sometimes it's an hour and a half. It's never more than 2 hours, I would say. And it's about bonding, and everybody gets along super well. It's a very open team. There is not anybody can say anything, and the ideas just occur from that. There is nothing else than that.
Very cool. Yeah, and I think it's as much about having a culture that fosters these ideas, the sort of brainstorming, as it is about telling a creative person, go come up with ideas. I think it's much more about having a company culture that enables that and empowers that.
Yeah, and also you cannot force that. I mean, let's say that you want to do a brainstorming meeting every week. I mean, you have 7 people. You only need one person in a bad mood for the meeting not to work. So, but if you do it every day, doesn't matter if one day the meeting doesn't work. You're gonna have another chance tomorrow.
Yeah. And it should not become like homework for them. Yeah. So to touch on an aspect you mentioned earlier, right? So everyone's, the creative designers are coming up with these ads, and some of these ads are so popular now that they've gone viral. Articles have been written about some of these ads. So do you see that there is a risk that the designer will aim to make an ad that is the next big hit, rather than an ad that has strong IPM, strong traction, strong ROAS, right? So is there a risk of that sort?
We make so many that if that happens with one of them, we have others. I mean, we got viral with a few ads that we made.
Yeah.
Some of the, I would say half of the ads that went viral work well in the networks, in the actual performance marketing operations.
Yeah.
Half have not. Half has just been a viral thing. Yeah. And that's it. So it's all adds up, right? I mean, part of the lifetime value of a user is the virality. Yeah. So the only thing is that you cannot measure it, but we have gone viral a few times, and we don't know how to do it. To be honest, many people ask, like, what do you do to go viral? The only recommendation we can have for anybody asking that is just don't think about it.
Yeah.
Don't look for it. The more you look for it, it's sure it will not happen. So.
Yeah. Interesting. And of course, I'm aware you guys manage a very sizable budget with a very small team. How do you keep the user acquisition and marketing function organized, and I understand you guys have some fairly savvy automation. Can you speak to what sort of automation you guys have? What sort of dashboards and KPIs you guys look at on a day-to-day basis to manage what seems to be a sizable budget with a fairly small team?
Yeah, so we are at the moment 4 UA managers plus me. 4 UA managers that handle campaigns, and that includes everything from traditional ad networks to Facebook, Google, Apple search ads. And we work with about 10 ad networks. It helps that we have one flagship game that we're promoting, right? And we don't have many. That helps the organization a lot. But we work in automation a lot. We have 2 backend developers, and we're gonna have 4. That's the idea of the team. And then we have about 3. We have 3 data scientists, 4 data scientists, and a lead that also can program. So we have an engineering power. And what we try to do is to automate absolutely everything. Whatever can be automated, we do. I mean, that team, essentially 90% of the projects is to help the UA managers to concentrate on what is important. In general, the important part of the UA of the marketing mix is a bunch of publishers that you have, plus the campaigns that you have in Facebook and UA, and then you have a lot of spend that can be automated. Everything starts from having a reliable lifetime value, machine learning algorithm that you can trust, of course, and then being able to develop systems that pivot around the lifetime value of a user, and to do things like, for instance, uploading bits automatically, to do things like upload creatives in bulk in a single place, and of course you want to have the ability to use not many user interfaces, so they don't have to go through many dashboards and things like that. Have it as clean as possible. And then we also automate the monitoring of things, like we automatically decrease bits if we see that publisher is really bad. We have a lot of set of rules. We develop something that we call, not very humbly, super bidding, which automates the whole process. And there's we have a super bidding that is automatic, and then we have something that is a semi-automatic. So we have a set of logics that you can use in order to set a strategy for your bids. And then you have a fully manual version of it that the UA people just can go and set up a bid. But the idea is all the time the same. Being able to do all the most of the work for the UA manager, so the UA manager can concentrate on the inventory that you really need to look closely, and not having to do a lot of operational work. That helps a lot.
Yeah, and that's definitely something I also find very impressive about what you guys do, because again, with the kinds of budgets you manage, there's incredible complexity, and simplifying a lot of the processes absolutely helps keeping those things moving. That, of course, is in addition to all of the very impressive work you guys are doing on the creative front. For all of that, Gonzalo, I thought this is very instructive to me. Certainly, I've taken notes, and I will take notes as I listen to this again. This is perhaps a good place for us to start to wrap up. As we wrap, can you tell our listeners how they can find out more about you and everything you guys do?
Well, I mean, there's not much about me. I've been in the industry for 10 years. I started in Gameloft. And then I work in a small startup in Barcelona called Omnidrone, and then I moved to Denmark after taking a break. Tactile Games, we you can always go to our website, tactilegames.com, have a look at the games we have if you want. That's kind of all to mention actually our webpage. You probably want to go to the App Store and put Tactile Games over there and play some of the games we have.
Certainly.
And yeah, I mean, there's not much. I'm not really good at promoting myself.
Sure, and we can do that for you, hopefully. Definitely, Gonzalo, thank you so much again for being on the Mobile User Acquisition Show.
No problem, anytime.
For more tips, pointers, and strategies from the leading edge of mobile user acquisition, subscribe to our YouTube channel right here, or check out our blog, rocketship.hq.com/blog. Thank you.